Walk the Line is now a 20-year-old biopic film about the rise and fame of country folk singer Johnny Cash.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
This film has become fairly relevant again with its director James Mangold tackling the recent Bob Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown. Mangold's grounded, gritty style shines through both films, and you can see how similar they are to each other through the look, sound, and overall feel. A Complete Unknown even contains a Johnny Cash scene that is mentioned in Walk the Line, which we will be talking about. Walk the Line, however, always struck a certain chord for me. Joaquin Phoenix's Oscar-nominated performance and Reese Witherspoon's Oscar-winning performance as June Carter separate this movie from other biopics and tellings of non-fiction stories. I mean, just listen to them.
Someone to look out for you and more, but it ain't me, babe.
The film deals with many themes like addiction, love, tragedy, and coming together. Hello and welcome to Studio Cinema Saturday, the show where we review films old and new, the ones you don't like and the ones you do. I'm your host, Kael, and today I'm looking at Walk the Line, 20 years later. And if you've seen this show before, you know we're going to start out with some of those spoiler-free thoughts. And if you haven't seen this show before, welcome, like, subscribe, keep coming back to hang out with us. And I'm going to go ahead and start by saying I'm going to start by talking about Walk the Line, and then I'm going to compare it to A Complete Unknown. So if you're just here to see me compare those two films, go ahead and go to that timestamp, and that's where I'll be talking about it. I will be picking which film I like better at the end of the video. And spoiler free, I'm going to keep it short and just start by saying that I love the performances here. And while I love a lot of biopics like Rocket Man, The Dirt, The Coal Miner's Daughter, Elvis, and more, where the performers are actually singing and playing the music, I think Reese Witherspoon and Joaquin Phoenix took it to a whole new level. As a kid, I used to prefer some of their versions of the songs. As an adult, I listened to Johnny and June's versions, but, as a kid, I was mesmerized by these performances, and at a certain point, couldn't believe that that wasn't Johnny Cash singing. Just the way that you're able to fool a kid with movies. The movie magic, has a little bit more of an effect. But when I come back and rewatch the film or just hear these versions of the songs from the film, I am never disappointed. I also think the story here is amazing. Starting with JR's childhood and Air Force days through the 50s, and then seeing him become the musician Johnny Cash in the 60s is just an amazing arc for the film. A moment that shows the age of this period the film lives in is when Johnny stands outside the recording studio smoking a cigarette until he catches the producer, played by Dallas Roberts, coming in, and this is just a truly funny moment of him standing on a pole smoking a cigarette. But because this is a 20-year-old film and I assume you've already seen it, I'm gonna go ahead and flash up that spoiler warning. So let's talk about potentially the biggest theme in this film. Addiction. We know from the film's intro and Johnny's mention of it at Thanksgiving dinner that Johnny's father was an alcoholic for a period of time. Johnny quickly follows in his footsteps, and in the film's depiction of the story, this becomes serious as he takes some pills from Elvis. We see the pills and alcohol cause Johnny to lose everything but his music career. His wife leaves with their children, June stops being a friend to him, and Phoenix wonderfully portrays an addict who cannot love or help himself.
Been asleep for 30 hours, Hoss.
Hey, did June call?
We see this in some of his cringe-worthy moments of peak addiction, like the mistreatment of his family, his collapse on stage to end a tour, and the eventual ruined Thanksgiving. But after this, I love when the Carter family stays with him, chases his drug dealer away, and helps him get cleaned up. This leads to him getting his life back together, and the eventual end of the story that leads to music, love, and life together for June and Johnny. Thematically, this movie is really solid, and I love how the story comes together. A classic story of the outlaw musician that Cash was. But one thing I really love about this movie is how well it's written. And I was really surprised to see that this is not one of the categories this film was nominated for at the Oscars, with its only win being Reese Witherspoon's performance. Moments that strike me are just moments from his songs that we see. For example, the moment his mother tells him not to mess around with his rifle while in the Air Force. I couldn't help but think about Folsom Prison Blues.
When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy, don't ever play with guns, but I shot a man in Reno.
Speaking of the old prison, I love the moment when Johnny is in the Air Force and his unit is watching 1951's noir thriller Inside the Walls of Folsom Prison. During this, Johnny looks at a June Carter magazine, and this is just a moment that comes back around full circle when the two of them are in Folsom Prison playing music at the end of the film. It's moments like this that lend to the musical genre, while taking some of these moments from Johnny's life and, giving them heightened drama. Something Mangold also heavily expresses in A Complete Unknown. And with that thought, I'm gonna go ahead and take us into the comparison aspect of the video. I think these are both really great films with even better performances within them. I think it's really fun to see them connect, as we're seeing the two stories of these two musicians who were friends in real life. So there are many overlaps, and while we don't get to see Dylan and Walk the Line like we do Cash and A Complete Unknown, it is really cool to pick at the mentions of Bob Dylan throughout Walk the Line. I think it's just, kind of goes to show the impact that their friendship had on, their relation to folk and country music. When Vivian is in the kitchen, she hands Johnny a letter from Dylan. He reminds her it's a folk artist he was telling her about, and mentions he wrote a letter to Dylan while on a plane. In A Complete Unknown, we see Cash writing that letter on the plane. This was awesome. Stylistically, these films have so much in common. Both films include a sequence where Dylan's song Highway 61 plays over a rebellious moment of the two protagonists. Both films include time jumps to help tell more of their musicians' lives. These films have great use of low light when it comes to cinematography. I recently saw a clip of A Complete Unknown's DP talking about how he and Mangold utilized low light to make the film feel more real, and this was also the case in A Complete Unknown. They're using so much low light in these films that you can see some grain on screen at times, but it doesn't look bad. These are beautiful films. I also like how both films have sequences where you're following the characters on the streets, kind of getting to see a grounded look at their day-to-day lives. And, maybe this is their view of the world in a sense. The two films feature love triangles as well, featuring the musician, which is Johnny or Bob, a female musician, and a female that was met before meeting the female musician. Another funny cultural moment is that both films have mention of the British invasion, and how, this was a bad thing, and that it was coming for their American music. All I have to say about this is rock on. Don't let me down! One of my favorite things that I instantly noticed though when watching A Complete Unknown is that both of these films display scenes where the two main performers in the films are singing It Ain't Me, Babe.
Someone to open each and every door.
Obviously, those are all things that happened in real life, but I think it's really cool to look at just in terms of the film, where both of these scenes feature the characters singing the songs when they're not getting along off stage. I think it's really cool to have the juxtaposition of who they are on stage versus off stage. And a lot of these concert scenes look similar too, with a lot of these shots of the performers and a lot of black in the background. It feels like they're on stage by themselves in moments. Just really cool filmmaking. But on the flip side, looking at Complete Unknown, we have Johnny Cash in that film. And he's played by Boyd Holbrook, who gives a solid performance and a solid little rendition of Folsom Prison Blues, I won't lie. Johnny Cash in that film is an inspiration or a motivator for Bob Dylan. He actually gets to play a role in the film here, which I really enjoyed, given he's no Joaquin Phoenix. And you can feel a similar direction that Mangold's giving the character, and you feel this the most probably during a fit of Cash's addiction within the film. I think it's also worth it to mention that both of these films are based off of autobiographies and biographies based off of the musician. Walk the Line being based off of Men in Black, His Own Story, His Own Words, and Cash, the autobiography, and A Complete Unknown being based off of Dylan Goes Electric, which Bob Dylan mentioned when talking about the film on social media. Now, which film do I think is better? Which film do I like better? Go ahead and drop your answer in the comments below. I'll give you just a second. I honestly have to go with Walk the Line here. Due to the performances of not just Cash, but June Carter as well, everyone in this movie is amazing, and I love to see all the characters portrayed, like Waylon Jennings, played by his son Shooter, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis, and more. Not to knock the portrayals of Bob Dylan and Joan Baez, however, in A Complete Unknown, because those are incredible performances, and Timothée Chalamet just belongs to be on that higher level of actors now. But the performances and music aren't the only thing I'm judging this film off of. One of my favorite things about Walk the Line is how much of Cash's story you get throughout the film. It feels like truly we're not missing that much. Given I enjoyed the contained aspect of A Complete Unknown, we're only looking at these 4 or 5 years, and you truly get a sense of who Bob Dylan was during that period of his life. A little bit of, two different films here, but James Mangold throws his touch on both of them equally as well, I think. I think keep throwing this man biopics, genuinely. I love these two films, and I love Ford v Ferrari, as, I would never want to try to pick between all 3 of the films if you laid them out. And love Logan too. James Mangold's just an awesome director. I love that we were talking about 2 of his films on back-to-back weeks, as I talked about A Complete Unknown last week. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of Studio Cinema Saturday. We have many like it, as we just did A Complete Unknown, Nosferatu, Terrifier 3, and way, way more. We're here every Saturday talking about movies. Go watch our sister show, Television Tuesday, as we're here doing the same thing, talking about TV every single Tuesday. And don't be afraid to check out some of our own original films. We make short films, and that's really what we're chasing after here on YouTube and at Studio 24. We hope to see you in the next video, and I'll see you there. Yeah, that shit was cool. I'm gonna reset and film another.